Imagine a world not so different from our own, where brilliant minds unlocked the secrets of the universe, not with silicon chips and satellites, but with stone, sound, and celestial observation. A world where the greatest scientific achievements weren't displayed in towering laboratories, but deliberately concealed deep within the earth, hidden away in chambers of breathtaking complexity. These subterranean spaces, often dismissed as mere tombs or storage rooms, hold within their silent walls a story that challenges everything we thought we knew about human progress. What if the pinnacle of ancient knowledge wasn't lost to time, but simply waiting underground for us to rediscover? Today, we're going beyond the walls, venturing into the cool, dark depths where ancient scientists experimented with principles we're only now beginning to fully appreciate. From the resonant frequencies in Malta's Hypogeum that could alter consciousness, to the precisely aligned passages in Ireland's Newgrange that captured the winter solstice sun, these structures reveal a sophistication that rivals modern engineering. They weren't just building for burial, they were encoding astronomical data, mastering acoustic physics, and creating sustainable climate systems that endured for millennia. This isn't about mysterious forces or lost magic. It's about recognizing the incredible scientific ingenuity of cultures that viewed the world through a lens of integrated knowledge, where art, science, and spirituality were woven together into a seamless tapestry of understanding. By the end of our journey, you'll see how these ancient innovations aren't just historical curiosities, they're actively inspiring modern architects, engineers, and physicists today. We'll explore how their understanding of geothermal cooling can inform sustainable design, how their acoustic experiments might revolutionize sound therapy, and why their decision to preserve this knowledge underground speaks to a profound wisdom about protecting what matters most. So prepare to question the timeline of human achievement and open your mind to the possibility that our ancestors knew more than we've ever given them credit for. The story of these subterranean chambers is ultimately a story about us, about curiosity, resilience, and the timeless drive to uncover the mysteries of our existence. When we think of ancient structures, our minds often drift to towering pyramids, grand temples, and sprawling cities, monuments built to reach for the heavens. But some of the most profound and puzzling achievements of our ancestors were not constructed upward, but downward, carved with immense effort into the very bedrock of the earth. These are subterranean chambers, a term that encompasses a vast array of man-made underground spaces. They are far more than simple caves or crude shelters. They are sophisticated architectural feats that reveal a level of planning and engineering that continues to astonish researchers today. From the intricate catacombs beneath Rome, which weave for hundreds of miles, to the isolated and perfectly constructed rooms hidden deep within Egyptian desert plateaus, these chambers represent a global phenomenon. Cultures separated by oceans and millennia independently made the decision to go underground, not out of necessity alone, but with a clear and deliberate purpose. This wasn't about finding a place to store grain or bury the dead. It was about creating specialized environments for work that could not be done, or perhaps should not be done, on the surface. Consider for a moment the sheer physical challenge of creating these spaces. Without modern machinery, lasers, or even iron tools in some cases, ancient builders had to possess an intimate understanding of geology. They needed to know which types of rock could be carved without collapsing, how to manage groundwater seepage, and how to design ventilation shafts to bring fresh air deep into the earth. The Hypogeum of Saflini in Malta, a labyrinthine complex carved over thousands of years, is a stunning example. Its walls are smooth to a finish that seems almost modern, and its multi-level design shows a masterful control of structural engineering. But it's the acoustic properties of certain chambers, like the famous Oracle Room, that truly baffle experts. Specific frequencies of sound resonate through the rock in ways that can be felt physically, suggesting the builders weren't just digging rooms, they were tuning them like instruments, demonstrating a practical application of wave physics that we are still trying to fully comprehend. Then there is the mind-bending precision found in places like the Serapeum of Sakara in Egypt. Here, massive boxes were carved from solid granite, each one weighing tens of tons. The precision with which these sarcophagi were made is staggering. Their lids fit so perfectly that they are nearly airtight, and the surfaces are flawlessly flat and smooth. Granite is one of the hardest stones on Earth, and working it with such exactitude using simple copper tools and abrasive sand seems almost impossible. This level of craftsmanship points to a sophisticated knowledge of mathematics and geometry, an ability to calculate angles and dimensions with incredible accuracy. It forces us to ask difficult questions. Did they possess tools or techniques that have been lost to history? Were they using some form of advanced technology that we have yet to rediscover? These chambers stand as silent, stone witnesses to a scientific prowess that conventional history often struggles to explain. So why go to all this trouble? Why invest generations of labor to create these complex structures in the dark, away from the sun and open air? The answer seems to be that the underground environment offered unique advantages. It provided natural insulation from heat and cold, creating stable temperatures ideal for both preserving delicate materials and for conducting precise scientific observations. It offered secrecy and protection, safeguarding valuable knowledge, rituals, or communities from the ravages of weather, war, or time. But perhaps most importantly, it provided a controlled canvas. By moving their most advanced work underground, these ancient scientists could isolate their experiments from surface-level interference, creating perfect conditions to study the movement of stars, the behavior of sound, and the properties of the Earth itself. These chambers were not the dark, primitive basements we might imagine. They were the ancient world's equivalent of cutting-edge laboratories, sealed away for millennia, waiting for us to uncover their secrets. What's truly remarkable is how this drive to build downward emerged independently across the globe, in cultures that could never have communicated with one another. It's as if something fundamental in the human spirit recognizes the unique potential that lies beneath the surface. Take, for instance, the vast underground city of Derinkuyu in Cappadocia, Turkey. This wasn't just a few hidden rooms. It was an entire multi-level metropolis capable of sheltering thousands of people, complete with stables, churches, and sophisticated ventilation shafts that reached deep into the earth. Its construction required a profound understanding of the region's soft volcanic rock, ensuring stability against collapses and invasions for centuries. This wasn't mere hideaway, it was a masterpiece of community planning and geological engineering designed for long-term survival. On the other side of the world, the Maya civilization looked into the depths for a different kind of knowledge. The natural sinkholes of the Yucatan Peninsula, known as cenotes, were far more than just sacred water sources. They were transformed into celestial observatories. The Maya noticed how the open mouth of a cenote framed specific portions of the night sky, and how at certain times of the year, sunlight would pierce the water at precise angles, illuminating hidden features below. By carefully observing these light patterns and star reflections on the water's surface, they could track the complex movements of planets and stars, developing a highly accurate calendar system that guided their agriculture and rituals. This was astronomy of the highest order, using the Earth itself as a giant natural instrument. Meanwhile, in the arid landscapes of Rajasthan, India, ancient engineers confronted the challenge of water scarcity and extreme heat with breathtaking ingenuity. They constructed monumental stepwells like the famous Chand Bayori, which descend dozens of flights of steps deep into the ground to reach the water table. But these were not simple wells, they were clever climate control systems. The vast, open subterranean structures created a natural temperature gradient. The hot surface air would sink down the steps, cool as it approached the water reservoir at the bottom, and then rise again, creating a continuous cycle of air movement that cooled the entire area. This passive cooling system, based on the principles of convection and thermodynamics, provided a refuge from the blistering heat and served as a central community gathering place. It was a perfect marriage of practical necessity and sophisticated scientific understanding, all achieved without any need for mechanical power. From the tunnels beneath the Giza Plateau, which may have been used for initiations or protected rituals, to the mysterious network of underground galleries in South America that predate the Inca, this pattern repeats itself. Each culture, responding to its own unique environmental and social pressures, arrived at the same conclusion: the subterranean world offered solutions. It provided a stable thermal mass for temperature regulation, protection from the elements and human conflict, and a pristine, isolated environment for precise scientific observation. This collective, yet independent, turn underground suggests a universal chapter in the story of human innovation, one where the quest for knowledge and survival drove us to look not just to the stars, but deep into the heart of the Earth itself. Now, let's turn our attention to one of the most compelling and mysterious aspects of these underground structures: their sound. Stepping into certain chambers is like entering a giant stone musical instrument. In many of these spaces, a simple whisper can travel with crystal clarity across a vast room, or a specific note can hang in the air, vibrating through the very rock under your feet. This isn't a quirky accident of architecture. It is a stunning display of acoustic engineering that reveals an ancient grasp of physics we are only now measuring with digital equipment. The builders of these chambers understood how sound waves behave, how they reflect, amplify, and interact with each other in an enclosed space. They weren't just carving rooms, they were tuning them, creating resonant environments for purposes that blended science, spirituality, and community. The most famous example of this is the oracle chamber in Malta's Hypogeum of Saflini. This small, oval-shaped room is an acoustic marvel. When a person speaks in a deep, male voice at a specific pitch around 110 Hz, the sound doesn't just echo. It amplifies dramatically, creating a powerful vibration that can be felt in the bones as much as it is heard by the ears. The entire chamber seems to hum and resonate, an effect that would have been profoundly unsettling and awe-inspiring thousands of years ago. Researchers believe this was intentionally designed to alter human consciousness. Sound at that specific frequency has been shown to affect brain activity, potentially inducing states of relaxation, heightened awareness, or even trance. This suggests the chamber wasn't merely a temple for speaking to gods, but a sophisticated tool for healing, meditation, or initiation, using the physical properties of sound to achieve psychological and physiological effects. But the Hypogeum is not alone in this sonic sophistication. Across ancient sites, we find evidence of the same intentional design. In the underground tombs and temples of Ireland, like Newgrange, we see carefully placed carved niches and corbelled roofs that aren't just decorative. They act as precise sound reflectors and waveguides, channeling audio in specific directions and preventing it from scattering uncontrollably. In some chambers in Turkey, a clap of the hands produces a perfect, clean echo, not the muddy reverberation you would expect from a rough cave. This clarity indicates the walls were shaped and smoothed to control the behavior of sound waves, to eliminate acoustic chaos and create a predictable, controllable auditory environment. The builders were effectively creating the ancient equivalent of a modern echoic or resonant chamber, spaces that are incredibly difficult to engineer even today with advanced materials. So how did they accomplish this without oscilloscopes or computers? The process was likely one of immense patience, observation, and empirical experimentation. We can imagine generations of artisan scientists carefully tapping on stone walls, listening to the note it produced, and then painstakingly carving away minute amounts of rock to adjust the frequency. They would have experimented with different shapes, ovals, rectangles, and beehive domes, to discover which geometries best amplified or focused sound. They might have used water to test for resonance or employed long strings to visualize standing waves. This was a science developed through touch, hearing, and an intuitive understanding of materials, a knowledge passed down through apprenticeship and perfected over centuries. Their success is a testament to the power of careful observation and incremental innovation. The potential applications of this technology are as fascinating as the engineering itself. Beyond ritual use, this acoustic mastery could have served highly practical purposes. In vast, multi-level underground cities like Derinkuyu, specific resonant frequencies might have been used as a form of long-distance communication, a way to send messages through stone that ordinary speech could not achieve. A drumbeat or a horn blast at the right pitch could travel through ventilation shafts and tunnels to alert the entire population of an impending threat. Alternatively, these sonic properties could have been used to enhance storytelling or musical performances, turning a simple gathering into an immersive, multi-sensory experience that deepened cultural memory and community bonds. The ability to harness sound in this way points to a culture that viewed science not as separate from daily life, but as an integral tool for enriching it, protecting it, and understanding the human place within the cosmos. While we often marvel at the celestial precision of above-ground structures like Stonehenge, some of the most astonishing astronomical alignments were actually engineered deep within the Earth, hidden from the naked sky. This brings us to our second key insight, the sophisticated astronomical alignment of subterranean chambers. These weren't just holes in the ground, they were precise instruments for tracking the cosmos. Imagine the challenge to capture a specific beam of sunlight or frame a single star in the darkness, not with a telescope on an open plain, but from within a mountain of stone. The ancient builders achieved this with an accuracy that rivals modern observatories, turning the Earth itself into a giant calendar and clock. The most iconic example is Newgrange in Ireland. This massive 5,000-year-old mound, older than both Stonehenge and the Great Pyramid of Giza, contains a long, narrow passage that leads to a central chamber. For most of the year, this inner sanctum is shrouded in complete darkness, but for a few precious minutes around dawn on the winter solstice, something magical happens. A single, narrow beam of sunlight pierces through a specially designed opening above the entrance, known as a roof box. This shaft of light travels slowly down the passageway, exactly illuminating the intricate spiral carvings on the back wall of the chamber. This event isn't a happy accident, it is the result of incredibly precise engineering. The orientation of the entire structure, the angle and height of the passage, and the size of the roof box had to be calculated to an exacting degree to capture the sun at its lowest and weakest point in the annual cycle. This wasn't just about marking the shortest day of the year. It was a profound symbolic act, a guaranteed promise that the darkness would recede and the light would return, bringing life back to the world. Across the Mediterranean, the ancient Egyptians demonstrated a similar obsession with celestial precision, but they often looked to the stars rather than the sun. Deep within the step pyramid of Djoser at Sakara, the earliest colossal stone building in Egypt, a labyrinth of underground galleries and chambers contains shafts that point directly to specific stars. Most significantly, several are aligned with Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky. In Egyptian mythology, Sirius was associated with Sopdet and the annual flooding of the Nile, the event that rejuvenated the land and made agriculture possible. The heliacal rising of Sirius, its first appearance just before dawn after a period of invisibility, heralded this life-giving flood. By creating an underground sightline to this star, the Egyptians could track its cycle with perfect accuracy from a protected, stable environment, allowing them to predict the flood and plan their planting seasons. This was a matter of survival, and their astronomical science, encoded in stone deep beneath the desert, was the key to their civilization's endurance. The implications of these alignments are staggering. This level of precision required not just casual observation, but generations of dedicated data collection. Teams of watchers would have had to meticulously record the movements of celestial bodies over decades, even centuries, noting subtle shifts and patterns. This accumulated knowledge then had to be translated into architectural plans, a process that demanded a sophisticated understanding of mathematics and geometry. They were effectively building in 3 dimensions, calculating angles and trajectories through solid rock to intersect with light years of empty space. The motivation was a powerful fusion of science and spirituality. By bringing the heavens underground, they were literally building their cosmology into the foundation of their world, creating a permanent, immutable record of their understanding of the universe. These chambers served as both practical calendars and sacred spaces where the cosmic order was made manifest, ensuring that this vital knowledge would be preserved, unchanged for countless generations to come. This mastery of the Earth itself forms our third key insight, revealing that ancient builders possessed a profound and practical understanding of geological and structural engineering that allowed them to literally reshape the underground world. Venturing into these spaces, we must move beyond the wonder of what they built and begin to appreciate the immense challenge of how they built it. They weren't just digging holes, they were conducting a complex dialogue with the Earth, learning its language of stress, fracture, and flow. Every strike of a tool was informed by generations of accumulated knowledge about rock mechanics, requiring them to be both geologists and architects, intuitively understanding which layers of stone could bear immense weight and which were prone to crumbling. The underground city of Derinkuyu in Cappadocia stands as perhaps the ultimate testament to this skill. This wasn't a simple refuge. It was a vertical metropolis carved into surprisingly soft but stable volcanic tuff. The builder's genius lay in recognizing the unique properties of this rock. It was easy to excavate with basic tools, yet would harden on contact with air, forming a structurally sound and durable material. But their work didn't stop at simply carving out rooms. They engineered the entire complex with a foresight that modern urban planners would admire. To prevent collapse under the immense weight of the Earth above, they left massive, uncarved pillars of bedrock at regular intervals to act as central supports, a technique that has kept these spaces intact for centuries. They carved narrow, twisting corridors that could be easily blocked with giant, rolling stone doors, a defensive measure that also served as structural bulkheads, compartmentalizing the city to contain any potential collapses or fires. Yet a city of 20,000 people cannot survive underground without two crucial lifelines, air and water. This is where their engineering brilliance truly shines. They dug over 50 ventilation shafts, some stretching over 100 feet to the surface. These weren't just simple holes. Their placement was a calculated feat of environmental science, leveraging differences in air temperature and density to create a passive convection system. Cool, fresh air would be drawn in from lower openings, while warmer, stale air would rise and escape through higher shafts, ensuring a constant, life-sustaining breeze throughout all 18 levels. Simultaneously, they tapped into underground aquifers, carving deep, protected wells that provided a fresh water supply even during prolonged sieges, while also designing intricate, hidden drainage channels to divert groundwater and prevent catastrophic flooding. This holistic approach to livability, considering structure, security, atmosphere, and hydration in one integrated design, reveals a systems-thinking mindset we often consider a modern innovation. This same sophisticated understanding is evident across the globe. The Maya in the Yucatan Peninsula expertly managed the water table within their sacred cenotes, constructing channels and dams to control water levels for both ceremonial use and practical survival during dry seasons. In Egypt, the builders of the Serapeum selected granite not only for its durability but for its acoustic properties, demonstrating a knowledge of material science that extended beyond mere structural needs. Their construction techniques were equally advanced. The corbelled arch, where successive layers of stone are cantilevered inward until they meet at the top, is a precursor to the modern architectural arch. It's a design that cleverly redirects gravitational loads downward into the walls, allowing for the creation of spacious, high-ceilinged rooms without the risk of a roof collapse. This wasn't guesswork, it was applied physics, born from centuries of observing how stone behaves under pressure. The most compelling question then becomes one of knowledge transfer. How was this complex, practically applied science passed down through generations without detailed blueprints or engineering manuals? The answer likely lies in a rigorous tradition of apprenticeship and oral history, combined with what we might call scalable experimentation. A master builder wouldn't just teach an apprentice how to carve, he would teach him how to listen to the rock, to identify the telltale sounds and vibrations that signaled a stable layer versus a fault line. Knowledge was embedded in stories, songs, and rituals, making it memorable and ensuring that the principles of load distribution or groundwater detection were preserved not as abstract formulas, but as foundational cultural truth. They learned by doing, starting on small, less critical projects, their education a continuous cycle of observation, practice, and incremental innovation. The enduring stability of these chambers is their final, silent report card, a testament to a scientific tradition that was empirical, deeply effective, and written not on papyrus but in the very bedrock of our planet. Moving from the incredible structural feats of these underground cities, we arrive at another layer of ancient genius that feels strikingly modern, their mastery of energy and climate control. This is our fourth key insight. In an age long before fossil fuels or electricity, these cultures developed sophisticated methods to harness the Earth's own natural forces to create perfectly regulated environments. They understood that the ground beneath our feet is not just solid and inert, but a dynamic thermal battery, and they learned how to tap into it with breathtaking elegance. Their solutions weren't about brute force technology, but about working in harmony with fundamental physical principles to achieve comfort, preservation, and perhaps even power. The most widespread and enduring example of this is the Persian Qanat system, a marvel of ancient engineering that transformed barren landscapes into thriving oases. A qanat is not simply a tunnel for water, It is a complete ecosystem for managing a precious resource. It begins with an underground aquifer in the foothills of a mountain range. Skilled surveyors, known as mukanis, would first locate this water source. Then, with astonishing accuracy, they would plot a gentle, sloping tunnel from the water source to the destination village or farmland many miles away. A series of vertical access shafts were dug along the tunnel's route, not only for removing excavated material but also for maintenance and, most cleverly, for ventilation. As water flowed through the dark, underground channel, it was protected from the blistering sun, drastically reducing evaporation loss. But the true brilliance is in the airflow. The cool, moist air from the tunnel would rise out of these vertical shafts, drawing hotter, drier surface air down into the adjacent shafts. This constant convection current created a natural cooling effect, lowering the temperature of the air exiting the tunnel. This cooled air could then be channeled into buildings above, effectively creating the world's first evaporative air conditioning systems, providing both life-giving water and relief from the desert heat from a single, integrated design. This intuitive grasp of thermodynamics is equally evident in the vast underground cities of Cappadocia, like Derinkuyu. Carved into the soft volcanic rock, these complexes maintain a remarkably constant temperature year-round, typically around 55 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the natural temperature of the Earth at that depth, unaffected by the scorching summers or freezing winters on the surface. The ancient inhabitants leveraged this thermal mass effect perfectly. The rock itself acts as a giant heat sink, absorbing excess warmth in the summer and gently radiating it back in the winter. The sophisticated ventilation shafts we discussed earlier played a dual role here too, not just providing oxygen but also regulating this stable climate by allowing for the passive exchange of air without disturbing the core temperature. This made these subterranean levels ideal for countless activities, storing food that would otherwise spoil, preserving delicate textiles and scrolls, and providing a comfortable refuge for large communities for months at a time. It was a completely passive, zero-energy climate control system that required no fuel and produced no waste, a model of sustainability we are desperately trying to emulate today. Perhaps the most speculative yet fascinating theories involve not just climate control, but active energy generation. Some researchers have proposed that certain chambers, particularly those within the Great Pyramid of Giza, were designed to harness more exotic forms of energy. The King's Chamber, for instance, contains massive granite sarcophagi and is built with unique architectural features. Granite is a stone known to be slightly radioactive and is also piezoelectric, meaning it can generate an electric charge under mechanical stress. Could the pyramid's design, its placement over underground water channels, or even the acoustic resonances within it have created a subtle energy field? The idea is that these structures weren't just tombs or temples, but perhaps primitive power plants or devices for concentrating telluric earth energy. Similarly, the powerful acoustic resonances found in places like the Hypogeum in Malta might have been used for more than just ritual. Some theorists suggest that specific sound frequencies could have been used to manipulate matter or generate low-level energy fields through a process like cavitation or sonoluminescence, where sound waves create tiny bubbles in liquid that collapse with immense heat and light. While these more speculative ideas remain firmly in the realm of theory, they push us to think more broadly about the potential applications of ancient knowledge. What's undeniable is the core principle behind all these structures, a profound understanding of environmental synergy. These ancient scientists didn't see themselves as separate from nature, but as a part of it. Their goal wasn't to conquer the environment with overwhelming technology, but to carefully observe its rules and harness its inherent efficiencies. They used the Earth's constant temperature for cooling. They used gravity to transport water. they used convection to move air, and they used specific materials for their unique acoustic or piezoelectric properties. This represents a holistic, systems-based approach to science that modern engineering, with its focus on high-energy inputs and complex machinery, is only recently beginning to rediscover in the pursuit of green technology and passive housing. The enduring functionality of these spaces, still stable and climate-controlled after thousands of years, stands as a powerful testament to the effectiveness of their methods, challenging our modern assumptions about what truly constitutes advanced science. This drive to harness natural forces for climate and energy leads us to a deeper, more philosophical layer of ancient scientific thought. Beyond the practical application of physics and geology, these subterranean spaces served a profound dual purpose. They were designed as permanent, protected libraries for humanity's most precious knowledge. This represents our fifth key insight, the use of symbolism and architecture for knowledge preservation. In an age without digital backups or printing presses, these cultures faced the constant threat of losing everything to fire, flood, or conquest. Their solution was both brilliant and beautiful. They didn't just write down their discoveries, they built them into the very walls of their most secure structures, encoding advanced science into art, mythology, and sacred geometry to ensure it would survive for millennia. The walls of Egyptian tombs and temples provide some of the most explicit examples of this practice. Far from being simple decorations or prayers for the dead, the intricate hieroglyphs and star charts covering every surface function as a detailed scientific textbook. In the tomb of Senenmut, for instance, an elaborate celestial diagram maps the constellations, including the circumpolar stars that never set, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of astronomy used for timekeeping and navigation. Mathematical formulas for calculating areas and volumes are woven into the artwork, while depictions of surgical tools and procedures suggest an advanced knowledge of medicine. These were not public galleries, they were hidden away in underground chambers, accessible only to a select group of initiated priests and scholars. This was a deliberate strategy. By placing this repository of knowledge in a sacred, subterranean context, they protected it from the uninitiated and from the ravages of time above ground, ensuring that even if their civilization fell, the core of their scientific achievement would remain intact, waiting to be rediscovered. This tradition of encoding knowledge is a global phenomenon. Travel to the Ellora caves in India, and you will find an entire university carved into a mountain. The Kailasa Temple, the largest monolithic structure in the world, is a breathtaking marvel of engineering, but its true genius lies in its narrative sculptures. The walls tell stories from Hindu scriptures, but a closer look reveals they are also illustrating complex philosophical concepts about the nature of reality, the cosmos, and even human anatomy through symbolic language. A dancing figure might represent the dynamic energy of atoms, while the multiple arms of a deity could symbolize the multifaceted nature of a single scientific principle. This wasn't just art for art's sake. It was a mnemonic device, a way to compress vast amounts of information into a format that could be easily remembered, taught, and passed down through generations without relying on fragile scrolls or parchments that could be easily destroyed. This holistic approach, where science, spirituality, and art were completely intertwined, challenges our modern compartmentalized way of thinking. We often draw a sharp line between the rational, evidence-based world of science and the intuitive, faith-based world of spirituality. For these ancient scientists, no such divide existed. To them, the mathematical precision of a planetary orbit was just as divine and worthy of reverence as a creation myth. The resonant frequency that could heal the body was a physical manifestation of a spiritual harmony. By embedding their scientific knowledge within a spiritual and artistic framework, they ensured it was treated with the utmost respect and care. It became sacred, not secretive. This fusion made the knowledge more resilient, as it was protected by taboos and religious reverence, making it less likely to be vandalized or erased by invading cultures who might still hold the space itself as sacred. So why go to such extraordinary lengths to hide this wisdom? The answer lies in a profound long-term vision that saw beyond the rise and fall of empires. These ancient cultures understood the cyclical nature of history, that periods of enlightenment are often followed by dark ages where knowledge is lost or suppressed. By sealing their greatest achievements deep within the earth, they were creating a time capsule for civilization. They were sending a message to the future, trusting that a later generation, perhaps one more ready for the wisdom, would eventually find it and understand. This wasn't an act of fear, but one of incredible hope and responsibility. They viewed themselves as custodians of a cosmic legacy, with a duty to preserve the flame of knowledge through the long night, ensuring that even if they themselves faded into history, the light of discovery could one day be rekindled. To truly appreciate the Hypogeum of Saflini, we must first grasp the sheer scale of the undertaking. This was not a single chamber hastily dug into the hillside. It is a sprawling, multi-level complex that descended 3 stories deep into the Globigerina limestone, an immense project that archaeologists believe took well over 1,000 years to complete. The builders expanded and refined it across generations, with each new phase demonstrating an even greater mastery of their underground craft. What's truly remarkable is that the entire structure was carved using only stone, bone, and antler tools. The patience and skill required to hollow out this vast space, room by room, level by level, with such primitive implements is almost beyond comprehension. Every cubic foot of rock had to be painstakingly chipped away and removed all by hand in near total darkness, with only the faint, flickering light of oil lamps to guide them. This was a monumental investment of time and labor for a small, isolated island community, which speaks volumes about the profound importance they placed on what they were creating. This was far more than a burial complex. It was the beating heart of their spiritual and scientific world. The architectural design itself is a puzzle that reveals a sophisticated mind at work. The Hypogeum isn't a random collection of caves. Its layout is a deliberate mirror of the above-ground megalithic temples found across Malta, like the famous Geowith above Gantaja. The builders replicated architectural features like trilithon doorways, corbelled roofs, and even carved stone benches underground. This suggests a powerful symbolic connection between the world of the living and the world of the dead, or perhaps the seen and the unseen. They weren't just digging a hole, they were constructing a sacred, inverted temple. This intentional replication shows a highly developed sense of abstract thought and spatial planning. They had to envision the entire finished structure in their minds and then execute it in reverse, working from the inside out, removing material to create form instead of stacking it. This required an advanced understanding of structural integrity to prevent collapses, ensuring that ceilings would hold and walls would remain standing for millennia, which they astonishingly have. Then, of course, there are the acoustics, which elevate the Hypogeum from an archaeological wonder to a scientific enigma. The properties of certain chambers are so precise and so powerful that they cannot be dismissed as a fortunate accident. The most famous of these is the Oracle Room. This oval chamber is designed in such a way that it has a powerful resonant frequency right around 110 Hz. When a male voice speaks or chants at this specific pitch, the sound doesn't just get louder, it transforms. the vibration amplifies exponentially, becoming a physical force that reverberates through your entire body, resonating in your chest cavity and vibrating up through the soles of your feet. The effect is visceral and deeply unsettling. It feels less like hearing a sound and more like being inside the sound. Modern researchers have theorized that exposure to this frequency can directly impact human brain activity. It has been linked to a shift in prefrontal cortex activity, potentially suppressing the language centers of the brain and heightening emotional and intuitive processing, which could induce states of relaxation, heightened suggestibility, or even trance. This suggests the builders of the Hypogeum had stumbled upon a form of sonic technology. They likely discovered these properties through centuries of observation and experimentation, learning how the shape of a room, the texture of the walls, and the composition of the limestone could manipulate sound waves. They then refined their architecture to harness and amplify this effect. The potential applications are fascinating to consider. Was the oracle room used by a shaman or priest whose voice, dramatically amplified and altered by the chamber, would be perceived as the voice of a god or ancestor? Could it have been used for healing ceremonies where the intense vibrations were believed to have therapeutic properties, shaking illness from the body? Or was it a tool for meditation and consciousness expansion, a way for initiates to achieve altered states without the use of plants or chemicals? The acoustic properties extend beyond this one room. Sounds produced in certain niches can be heard clearly throughout entire levels of the complex, suggesting it might have also been used for communication or to create an immersive auditory experience during rituals. The artistry found within adds another profound layer to the mystery. The walls of several chambers were once richly decorated with red ochre paintings, now faded but still visible, depicting motifs like spirals, honeycombs, and concentric circles. In ancient cultures worldwide, the spiral is a nearly universal symbol representing the cycle of life, death, and rebirth, the journey of consciousness, or the movement of celestial bodies. The use of red ochre, a pigment often associated with ritual and the life force of blood, ties the space to themes of vitality and the underworld. This fusion of precise acoustic science with powerful symbolic art is the key to understanding the Hypogeum. It was a place where empirical discovery and spiritual belief were not separate pursuits, but were woven together into a single, holistic understanding of the universe. The builders understood that sound could alter mind and matter, and they built a laboratory to explore this intersection, decorating it with symbols that represented the very cycles of existence they were seeking to understand. It stands as a silent challenge to our modern compartmentalized world, reminding us that the deepest truths often lie at the boundaries between science and spirit. Now let's journey from the resonant chambers of Malta to the scorching sands of Egypt, to a site that presents a different kind of puzzle, one not of sound but of staggering scale and impossible precision. The Serapeum of Sakara is a sprawling underground network of tunnels and niches, and to walk through it is to be humbled by a feat of engineering that seems to defy logic. At its heart are 24 massive boxes, each carved from a single, solid block of granite or diorite, a stone so hard it ranks just below diamond on the Mohs scale of mineral hardness. The sheer mass of these objects is the first thing that overwhelms the senses. We're not talking about small chests. These are monolithic sarcophagi, some measuring over 13 feet long, 8 feet wide, and 11 feet high, with walls nearly 1.5 feet thick. Each one weighs in the neighborhood of 70 to 100 tons, the equivalent of a fully loaded commercial semi-truck, and they are not rough-hewn blocks. They are masterpieces of precision engineering. The finish on these granite boxes is what truly separates the Serapeum from other ancient wonders. The surfaces are flawlessly flat and polished to a mirror shine. The corners are perfect 90-degree angles, sharp enough to appear machined. But the most baffling detail is the fit of the lids. Each multi-ton lid was carved to sit perfectly atop its box, with a seam so tight and precise that it is virtually airtight. In fact, when the French archaeologist Auguste Mariette first rediscovered the Serapeum in 1851, he noted that the lids were so perfectly sealed that they had to be broken open with sledgehammers. This level of precision implies a knowledge of geometry and metrology, the science of measurement that we simply do not attribute to a civilization working over 3,000 years ago with simple copper chisels and stone hammers. Working granite of this hardness with those tools would be like trying to carve a sculpture with a piece of soft cheese. The copper would be dulled into uselessness within minutes, leaving little more than scratch marks on the incredibly durable stone. This impossibility has fueled intense speculation and research into the methods the ancient builders must have employed. The conventional explanation of patient pounding with dolerite balls and abrasive sand feels insufficient to account for the scale, speed, and perfection of the work. Some researchers have proposed more advanced, lost techniques. One compelling theory involves the use of sonic or vibrational cutting. Is it possible they had tools that used carefully calibrated vibrations to literally shake the stone apart at a molecular level along specific planes, much like a modern ultrasonic cutter works on brittle materials? Another theory points to the use of water jets, perhaps mixed with an even harder abrasive, forced through a tube with immense pressure to slice through the granite like a modern water jet cutter, which can slice through titanium. Others suggest they might have possessed a form of geopolymer technology, a kind of liquid stone that could be poured into molds to create these perfect forms, though this doesn't fully explain the evidence of quarrying and tool marks found elsewhere. The truth is, we simply don't know, and the absence of any clear tool marks or instructional texts from the period leaves us with a magnificent, silent mystery. The logistical nightmare of the Serapeum extends far beyond the workshop. The Aswan quarries, the source of this rose granite, lie over 500 miles away from Sakara. Imagine the challenge of quarrying a 100-ton block from a mountainside, then loading it onto a wooden barge to be floated down the Nile. This required a profound understanding of hydraulics and buoyancy to prevent the boat from sinking. Once near the site, the block had to be offloaded onto a sledge and dragged overland, likely on lubricated pathways by hundreds of workers. The final, most delicate step was maneuvering this colossal weight down a steep, narrow ramp into the subterranean tunnels and positioning it with inch-perfect accuracy into its designated niche. This was not a one-off event. It was an operation repeated 24 times. The coordination, manpower, and engineering knowledge required for this supply chain speaks to a highly organized, sophisticated society with master planners who could manage complex projects spanning years and hundreds of miles. And this leads to the most perplexing question of all: why? Why go to such extraordinary, almost superhuman effort to create these perfect underground boxes? The traditional explanation is that they were burial vaults for the Apis bulls, sacred animals in the Egyptian pantheon, believed to be incarnations of the god Ptah. While mummified bull remains were indeed found in some of the boxes, this explanation feels to many like an incomplete answer. The sheer over-engineering of the project seems disproportionate to its stated purpose. This has led to alternative theories that the bulls were a later addition, a symbolic reuse of a much older and far more advanced structure. Perhaps these boxes were designed for something else entirely, something that required a perfectly sealed, inert, and vibration-free environment. Could they have been sophisticated containment vessels for something energetic or volatile? Or were they designed as resonant chambers themselves, tuned to specific frequencies for a purpose we can scarcely imagine? The alignment of the main tunnel with celestial north adds another layer of intrigue, suggesting an astronomical or calendrical function that connected the underground world with the cycles of the cosmos above. The Serapeum, in all its silent, imposing grandeur, refuses to give up its secrets easily, standing as a permanent question mark at the heart of our understanding of ancient technological achievement. While the precision of the Serapeum leaves us questioning the tools of ancient Egypt, the scale of ambition found in Turkey is no less staggering. Imagine not just a hidden chamber, but an entire city, descending 18 stories deep into the earth, a labyrinthine world capable of sustaining 20,000 souls for months on end. This is Derinkuyu, a subterranean metropolis carved from the soft volcanic rock of Cappadocia, a place that redefines our understanding of ancient urban planning and community resilience. Its existence speaks not to isolated genius, but to a collective, coordinated application of geology, engineering, and social organization on a breathtaking scale. The motivation for such an undertaking was born from a stark reality: the need for absolute security in a landscape perpetually threatened by invading armies sweeping across the Anatolian plateau. This wasn't a project of philosophical curiosity. It was a masterpiece of survival, a direct response to existential threat that mobilized an entire society's knowledge and labor. The first challenge the builders faced was geological. Cappadocia's landscape is famously formed from soft volcanic tuff, a rock that is relatively easy to carve with basic tools but presents significant structural risks. A city of this depth and complexity couldn't simply be a haphazard collection of holes. It required a sophisticated understanding of load-bearing physics to prevent catastrophic collapse. The ancient engineers solved this with a technique that is still fundamental to modern mining and tunneling. They left massive, uncarved pillars of bedrock at regular intervals throughout the complex. These pillars act as natural supports, holding up the incredible weight of the earth above and creating a grid of stable, interconnected spaces. They also understood the properties of their material intimately. While soft when first excavated, the tuff hardens upon exposure to air, forming a durable and stable shell that has withstood countless earthquakes over millennia. This was construction that worked with the earth, not against it, showcasing a pragmatic and deep knowledge of local materials. But a city is more than just stable rooms. It is a living organism that requires air, water, and security. The ventilation system of Derinkuyu is perhaps its most brilliant feature. The builders dug over 50 distinct ventilation shafts, some reaching depths of over 100 feet to connect to the surface. The placement of these shafts was not random. They were strategically designed to leverage the natural principles of convection. Cool, fresh air would be drawn in from lower openings, while the warmer, stale air generated by thousands of inhabitants would rise and escape through higher shafts, creating a constant, passive circulation of air throughout all 18 levels. This ensured a steady supply of oxygen and prevented the buildup of humidity or dangerous gases, making long-term habitation not just possible but comfortable. Simultaneously, they tapped into an underground river and carved deep, protected wells, securing a fresh water supply that was immune to poisoning or blockage by any surface attacker. These wells were so deep and so cleverly integrated that they provided water even during the longest sieges. Security was paramount, and the solutions devised were both simple and utterly effective. The most iconic are the massive, circular rolling stone doors. These are not ordinary gates. They are immense discs of solid volcanic rock, weighing up to half a ton each. They were designed to be rolled into place from the inside, perfectly sealing key passageways. The doors fit into slots carved into the floor and sealing with such precision that once closed, they were virtually impossible to force open from the outside. They acted as giant deadbolts, allowing the city to be sealed off section by section. This modular defense strategy meant that even if an attacker managed to breach one door, they would only gain access to a small portion of the complex, while the majority of the population remained safe behind subsequent doors deeper within the labyrinth. Narrow, twisting corridors that forced invaders to proceed single file further enhanced this defensive design, making them easy targets for defenders. The layout of Derinkuyu reveals a society that had thought of everything necessary for long-term communal living. It wasn't just a shelter, it was a fully functional city. Explorers have identified not only living quarters and kitchens but also stables for livestock, cellars for storing vast quantities of food and wine, churches for worship, wineries for production, and even communal spaces for gathering and education. The presence of stables is particularly insightful. It shows an understanding that preserving their livestock was just as crucial for long-term survival as preserving their people. Tunnels, some stretching for miles, connected Derinkuyu to other underground cities in the region, creating a vast, hidden network that allowed for the movement of people, goods, and information between population centers, even during times of extreme danger. This speaks to a level of regional cooperation and centralized planning that is truly astonishing, suggesting a shared scientific and architectural knowledge base across a wide area. What emerges from the cool, dark silence of Derinkuyu is not the story of a frightened people hiding in holes, but of a resilient, highly organized, and brilliantly pragmatic civilization. They took a potential vulnerability, the soft, malleable rock of their homeland, and turned it into their greatest strength. Every carved room, every air shaft, every rolling stone door represents a triumph of applied science, a solution born from careful observation of the natural world and a deep understanding of human need. This was innovation driven by necessity, a testament to the human capacity for adaptation and collective action in the face of adversity. Derinkuyu stands as a permanent reminder that the pinnacle of ancient engineering is often found not in the monuments built to reach the heavens, but in the hidden cities carved to protect the very essence of life on Earth. Beneath the seemingly rough-hewn surfaces of these ancient chambers lies a hidden language of breathtaking complexity, a silent code written not in words but in angles, proportions, and perfect shapes. This is the language of mathematics and geometry, and its presence in these underground spaces is one of the most compelling pieces of evidence for a sophisticated and formalized ancient science. It wasn't enough for these builders to simply carve out a room. They imbued it with a precise mathematical order, using ratios and constants that we still recognize today as the fundamental building blocks of the universe. This wasn't decorative, it was deeply intentional, a way to harmonize their architecture with the very laws of nature they were striving to understand. Consider the sheer intellectual leap required to move from a simple, functional space to one governed by the golden ratio, approximately 1.618 to 1. This irrational number, often found in nature's most beautiful patterns like the spiral of a nautilus shell or the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower, appears with startling regularity in subterranean design. A builder might determine the length of a chamber and then carefully calculate its width and height to conform to this divine proportion. Why go to such trouble? Because they understood, perhaps intuitively, that structures built with these harmonious ratios possessed an inherent stability and an acoustic resonance that more random shapes lack. The geometry wasn't just for show, It was a functional tool that made their buildings stronger, their sound purer, and their symbolism more potent, connecting the human-made underground world to the natural order above. This mathematical encoding reaches its zenith in structures like the subterranean chambers of the Great Pyramid. The dimensions of the so-called King's Chamber are a textbook example of applied sacred geometry. The floor forms a perfect 2-to-1 rectangle, and the height is exactly half the diagonal of that floor. This creates a relationship where the area of the longer wall equals the area of the floor, and the diagonal of the end wall relates to the pyramid's original height. These aren't random measurements, they are interlocking mathematical relationships that suggest a profound understanding of spatial mathematics, perhaps even an early grasp of what we now call the Pythagorean theorem, centuries before Pythagoras himself was born. These constants didn't just relate to the building itself. Some researchers argue they encode information about the Earth's measurements and its relationship to astronomical cycles, turning the entire structure into a permanent stone calculator. The tools they used to achieve this precision were likely elegantly simple, yet required immense skill to employ correctly. We can picture teams of ancient surveyors using knotted ropes, functioning as precise measuring tapes, to lay out the dimensions of a chamber on the surface before any digging began. They would have used plumb bobs, simple weighted strings, to ensure their walls were perfectly vertical and their corners were true right angles. To calculate more complex angles and slopes, they might have employed a tool called a merkit, an ancient sighting instrument that used the alignment of stars to determine true north and establish perfect orientation. For calculating distances and heights that were not directly accessible, they likely used shadows and simple ratios, developing an early form of trigonometry. A stick of a known height placed in the ground could cast a shadow, and by measuring that shadow and understanding the angle of the sun, they could calculate the height of a wall or the depth of a pit with remarkable accuracy. This was a hands-on, experimental mathematics, learned and perfected through generations of direct application. The most fascinating implication of all this is what it tells us about their system of education and knowledge transfer. This level of mathematical sophistication couldn't be achieved by a lone genius. It points to a formalized, organized system of learning. Master builders would have taken on apprentices, teaching them the sacred ratios and the practical techniques for achieving them. This knowledge was likely transmitted orally through songs, stories, and hands-on practice, making it both memorable and protected from outside eyes. The apprentice wouldn't just be told the golden ratio, he would be shown how to create it with a rope, how to see it in the world around him, and how to feel its rightness in the stability of a structure. This was a living science, constantly tested and refined with each new project. Their classroom was the construction site, and their textbooks were the very stones they were shaping. The enduring perfection of these chambers is the final exam they all passed with flying colors, leaving behind a legacy that forces us to completely reconsider the origins of abstract thought and the timeless human drive to find order in the chaos of the world. This seamless fusion of architecture and astronomy speaks to a world view where the cosmos was not a distant abstraction, but an intimate, living presence woven into the very fabric of daily life. By bringing celestial alignments underground, these ancient scientists created a powerful, permanent link between the earthly and the divine, a connection that could be witnessed and experienced in the most profound way. The darkness of a subterranean chamber served as the perfect canvas for these celestial events, eliminating all visual noise and distractions. In that absolute blackness, a single beam of light arriving on a predicted day would have been a moment of breathtaking drama and powerful confirmation, a direct communication from the cosmos itself, witnessed only by those initiated into its secrets. This was science as a sacred experience, where empirical prediction and spiritual awe were one and the same. The sophistication of this practice is beautifully illustrated by the kivas of the ancient Pueblo peoples in the American Southwest. These circular, partly subterranean rooms were far more than simple meeting places. They were meticulously engineered astronomical instruments. Specific kivas feature small, strategically placed openings or shafts that align with the rising or setting of key celestial bodies on the solstices or equinoxes. A dagger of light might slice through the darkness to illuminate a particular petroglyph on the wall, or a bright spot might travel across a ceremonial feature, marking the passage of critical time. But their observations went beyond the sun. There is compelling evidence that certain kivas were also aligned with the more complex 18.6-year cycle of the moon, known as the lunar standstill. Tracking this long, subtle cycle requires generations of precise record-keeping and a deep understanding of celestial mechanics. The ability to encode this knowledge into the fixed architecture of an underground chamber ensured its preservation and accurate transmission, turning the building itself into a kind of immortal stone astronomer that would never forget a single calculation. This drive to synchronize with the heavens was ultimately about survival and meaning. For agricultural societies, knowing precisely when to plant and when to harvest was a matter of life and death. A miscalculation could lead to famine. By creating a fail-safe stone calendar that operated with the unwavering regularity of the cosmos itself, these cultures insulated themselves from the unpredictability of weather and human error. The underground observatory became the beating heart of the community's logistical planning, its predictions governing the rhythm of labor and celebration. But the purpose extended far beyond the practical. These celestial events also anchored the spiritual and social calendar, dictating the timing of major ceremonies, rites of passage, and communal gatherings. This created a powerful, shared cultural rhythm that bound the community together, aligning human activity with the perceived order of the universe. It fostered a profound sense of place and purpose, assuring people that their lives were part of a grand, predictable, and meaningful cosmic cycle. This profound shift in environment was a deliberate tool for transformation. Stepping into the absolute darkness and silence of a subterranean chamber, far from the familiar sights and sounds of the surface world, would have immediately triggered a powerful psychological response. The brain, deprived of its usual external stimuli, begins to turn inward. In this state of sensory reduction, the mind's own internal landscape becomes vivid and expansive. This is a principle recognized in modern therapeutic practices, from sensory deprivation tanks used for deep relaxation to isolation retreats designed for spiritual breakthroughs. Ancient cultures intuitively understood this phenomenon, crafting these underground spaces as controlled environments to facilitate journeys of the mind. The complete absence of light and sound wasn't an inconvenience. It was the essential first step in a carefully orchestrated process to quiet the conscious mind and access deeper, more intuitive states of awareness. This was a technology of consciousness, using the very absence of sensory input as its primary catalyst. Once the mind was primed by this isolation, the chamber's other features could take full effect. The acoustic properties we've explored, particularly the powerful resonant frequencies found in places like Malta's Hypogeum, were not merely for auditory spectacle. They were likely used as a precise tool for neurological influence. Modern research has shown that sound waves at specific low frequencies, around 110 to 120 Hz, can directly affect brain activity. This range has been associated with a shift in brainwave patterns, potentially suppressing the dominant left brain activity associated with linear thinking and language, while allowing right brain functions linked to creativity, intuition, and spatial awareness to come to the fore. In the heightened state induced by darkness and silence, the physical vibration of these sounds resonating through the body could guide participants into a trance-like state, making them more receptive to visualizations, insights, and what might be described as spiritual revelations. The chamber itself became a giant therapeutic instrument, its very walls tuned to facilitate a specific and desirable alteration of human consciousness. The symbolic artwork that adorned these chambers served as the final, crucial layer in this psychological toolkit. The spirals, zigzags, and concentric circles carved into the stone at sites from Newgrange to the Hypogeum were far more than decoration. These are universal symbols found across countless cultures, often representing concepts of journey, transformation, and the cycles of life and death. In the altered state induced by the environment and acoustics, these symbols would have acted as powerful focal points for meditation or as maps for the inner journey. An initiate seated in darkness might feel the vibrations of a chant humming through their bones while focusing their mind's eye on a carved spiral, using it as a guide to navigate their own subconscious. This combination of sensory manipulation and symbolic guidance created a holistic experience designed to produce profound personal insights, emotional release, or a sense of connection to a larger reality. It was a form of psychotherapy that engaged all the senses, aiming to heal not just the body, but the psyche and the spirit as well. This seamless integration of science and spirituality reveals a world radically different from our modern tendency to separate the two. For these ancient scientists, there was no contradiction between measuring the precise movement of a star and seeking a visionary experience. They viewed the human mind and the external cosmos as part of a single, interconnected system. Understanding the physics of sound waves could directly lead to a better method for healing emotional trauma. Tracking a solar cycle could provide the timing for a ritual that reinforced community bonds and psychological well-being. The subterranean chamber was the ultimate expression of this holistic philosophy, a place where astronomical alignment, acoustic physics, geological engineering, and symbolic art were all brought together in the service of exploring and enhancing human consciousness. They went underground not to escape reality, but to access a deeper layer of it, believing that true knowledge came from harmonizing the empirical truths of the outer world with the intuitive truths of the inner world. In doing so, they demonstrated a form of science that was deeply human, one that sought not to conquer nature but to collaborate with it, and in the process, to understand the fullest potential of the human experience. But how did they translate these brilliant architectural visions into reality, working with materials that would challenge even modern tools? The answer lies in a toolkit and a methodology that was far more advanced than we've traditionally credited them with. We often picture ancient builders with simple copper chisels and stone hammers, and while these were indeed part of their arsenal, the evidence left behind in places like the Serapeum points to a technological sophistication that goes far beyond brute force. The precision of those granite boxes, with their mirror-smooth surfaces and airtight seals, suggests the use of cutting techniques that we are still struggling to fully comprehend. One compelling theory involves the use of tube drills. Imagine a hollow cylinder, perhaps made of copper, that would be rotated back and forth using a bow-like mechanism. This tube would be fed with a constant stream of an abrasive slurry, a mix of water and a hard grit like quartz sand. As the copper tube rotated, the abrasive particles trapped underneath would do the actual cutting, slowly grinding through the incredibly hard granite. This method could account for the near-perfect right angles and the incredible surface finish we see, as the tube would naturally follow the path of least resistance, creating a smooth, drilled surface. The presence of core samples left in Egyptian quarries, which show clear spiral grooves consistent with a drilling process, provides tangible evidence that this technology was not just possible, but was actively in use. Yet, even the tube drill theory encounters some difficulties when faced with the immense scale and weight of the objects they were moving. The logistics of transporting a 100-ton granite block from the quarries at Aswan to Sakara is a monumental puzzle in itself. This is where their mastery of simple machines comes into breathtaking focus. While they may not have had pulleys with metal bearings, they understood the fundamental principles of mechanics. They used massive levers, likely made from sturdy timber, to inch these colossal stones onto waiting sledges. These sledges would then be pulled along pathways that were almost certainly lubricated with water or clay to reduce friction, a technique that would have required hundreds of workers coordinating their efforts with ropes. The construction of temporary ramps, both for loading barges on the Nile and for descending into the subterranean tunnels, demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of inclined planes and load distribution. They were effectively conducting large-scale physics experiments, applying principles of mechanical advantage to achieve what seems physically impossible. This wasn't just about having enough manpower, it was about directing that force with intelligent engineering to multiply its effect. Perhaps the most intriguing and controversial possibilities lie in the realm of what we might call lost technologies. The uncanny precision and the apparent ease with which they worked granite has led some researchers to propose more exotic methods. Could they have developed a form of sonic or vibrational technology? The idea is that specific resonant frequencies, carefully calibrated and applied to the stone, could cause it to vibrate at a molecular level, effectively making it more malleable or even allowing it to be shaped with less effort. This might sound like science fiction, but we know that certain cultures placed a great emphasis on the acoustic properties of their chambers, and it's not a huge leap to consider they might have applied that same knowledge to the process of construction itself. Another theory involves the use of chemical agents. Some ancient texts refer to plant-based solutions that could supposedly soften stone. While this seems far-fetched, it's possible they discovered a natural chemical that could slightly etch or weaken the crystalline structure of certain rocks, making them easier to work with hand tools. These ideas remain firmly in the realm of speculation, but they highlight a crucial point. Our current understanding of ancient tools may be incomplete, and we must remain open to the possibility that they possessed techniques that have since been forgotten. Ultimately, the most enduring and reliable technology was not made of copper or stone, but of knowledge itself, preserved through a rigorous system of apprenticeship. This was a living science passed down through generations of master builders and their students. An apprentice wouldn't learn from a textbook. He would learn by doing, starting with simple tasks and gradually taking on more complex challenges under the watchful eye of his teacher. The master would impart not just the how, but the why the sound a particular strike makes on stable rock versus unstable rock, the way water can be used to both cut and polish, the precise angle to hold a drill to achieve a smooth finish. This knowledge was a sacred trust, a cumulative inheritance of thousands of years of trial and error, observation and innovation. Each generation built upon the successes and learned from the failures of the last, slowly refining their methods to an astonishing degree of perfection. This process of continuous, incremental improvement is the true engine behind these ancient wonders, a testament to the power of human ingenuity and the relentless, collaborative pursuit of mastery over the material world. This instinct to conceal and protect runs deep in the human story, and when we examine these hidden chambers, we see a powerful, strategic impulse at work. It wasn't about hoarding knowledge out of selfishness, but about ensuring its very survival in a world fraught with unpredictable dangers. Imagine the existential threats these ancient cultures faced, not just the obvious peril of invading armies sweeping across the land, but also the slow, creeping devastation of climate shifts, droughts, or societal collapse that could erase centuries of progress in a generation. In this volatile context, moving their most precious assets underground was the ultimate insurance policy. A city like Derinkuyu is the most dramatic example of this. An entire civilization could literally vanish beneath the earth, sealing itself behind massive stone doors until the threat on the surface had passed. This wasn't a retreat, it was a strategic withdrawal, a way to protect the living heart of a community, its people, its traditions, and its accumulated wisdom, to ensure it could beat again another day. Beyond protecting people, these spaces served as incredibly secure vaults for the most valuable commodity of all, knowledge itself. We often wonder about the complete loss of the Library of Alexandria, that legendary repository of ancient learning. While its main halls were above ground and vulnerable, it's a tantalizing thought that its most precious scrolls might have had duplicate copies stored in secure, climate-controlled subterranean archives, a practice that would mirror our modern use of off-site data backups and disaster recovery plans. This concept of an underground library isn't just speculation. The Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered hidden in jars within remote desert caves, preserved for 2,000 years by the stable, dry darkness. This act of hiding wasn't an afterthought. It was a deliberate, calculated decision to safeguard a cultural treasure from destruction. The subterranean chamber, with its natural temperature and humidity regulation, was the ancient equivalent of a state-of-the-art archival facility, designed to protect fragile papyrus, parchment, and leather from the decay that sunlight, moisture, and air would inevitably bring. There was also a profound philosophical dimension to this secrecy. In many ancient societies, advanced knowledge, particularly in fields like astronomy, mathematics, and medicine, was considered not just powerful, but potentially dangerous if it fell into the wrong hands or was misunderstood by the unprepared. This led to the development of esoteric traditions where science was intertwined with spirituality and access was earned, not given. The intricate carvings on the walls of Egyptian tombs or within the depths of the Hypogeum weren't meant for public display. They were encrypted textbooks, their meaning clear only to those who had undergone the rigorous training and initiation to understand their symbolic language. This system ensured that a student wouldn't just learn a formula, but would also be taught the ethics and responsibility that came with wielding that knowledge. By placing these teachings deep underground, they created a physical barrier that mirrored the intellectual one, ensuring that only those truly dedicated to the path of understanding would ever gain access to its core truths. This wasn't about elitism, it was about stewardship, a way to prevent powerful concepts from being co-opted, corrupted, or used for harmful purposes. This ancient mindset finds a powerful echo in some of our most forward-thinking projects today. The Svalbard Global Seed Vault, buried deep inside a mountain on a remote Arctic island, is a direct descendant of this protective impulse. It's not built for people, but for the foundational knowledge of our agriculture, millions of seed samples, safeguarded against any conceivable global catastrophe. Similarly, initiatives to create underground, hardened storage for the world's digital data operate on the same principle, that the most valuable things must be placed in the most secure and stable environments. The ancient builders would have understood this perfectly. They saw their wisdom as a seed that needed to be protected through the long winter so that it could one day sprout again. Their subterranean chambers were time capsules built with a breathtakingly long-term perspective. They were not hiding their achievements from the world. they were preserving them for a future world, one that they hoped would be ready to receive them. This reflects a deep humility and a profound faith in the continuity of human curiosity, a belief that even if their own civilization faded, the questions they asked and the answers they found were too important to be lost forever. Perhaps the most powerful lesson these underground spaces offer is the reminder that the compartmentalization of knowledge is a relatively modern invention. We live in an era of intense specialization, where an astrophysicist and a neurologist might work in buildings next to each other and never share a single conversation. The ancient builders of these chambers operated under a completely different paradigm, one where the pursuit of understanding was a unified, holistic endeavor. They did not see a wall between the movement of a star and the resonance of a sound wave in a carved room. To them, these were simply different expressions of the same universal principles. This interconnected world wasn't a philosophical abstraction. It was the practical engine of their innovation, allowing them to create solutions of breathtaking elegance and complexity by borrowing concepts freely from what we would now consider entirely separate fields of study. We can see this interdisciplinary genius at work in a single, hypothetical chamber. Imagine a space designed by these ancient scientist priests. Its entrance might be perfectly aligned to capture the first ray of dawn on the summer solstice, a feat of precise astronomical calculation. That beam of light would travel down a passageway whose walls were not merely structural, but were carved with specific angles and surface textures to guide and amplify certain sound frequencies, demonstrating a masterful application of acoustic physics. The chamber itself, located deep within a specific type of limestone, would naturally maintain a constant, cool temperature ideal for preserving delicate herbal preparations or sacred texts, leveraging a practical understanding of geology and thermodynamics. And within this space, a trained individual might use the combination of celestial light, resonant sound, and controlled climate to facilitate healing rituals or meditative states that altered consciousness, blending empirical environmental manipulation with a sophisticated, early form of psychological therapy. This wasn't just a room, it was an integrated system where astronomy, physics, material science, and medicine converged to create an environment greater than the sum of its parts. This cross-pollination of ideas led to solutions that a single discipline approach might never have conceived. Consider the intriguing possibility that ancient cultures understood the impact of sound on plant growth, a concept modern science is only beginning to explore in earnest through the field of bioacoustics. Could the resonant frequencies carefully engineered into certain subterranean chambers have been used to treat seeds or stimulate plant vitality? If certain sound waves can affect human brain waves and the molecular structure of water, it is not a tremendous leap to imagine ancient experimenters applying this same acoustic knowledge to agriculture, using specially tuned underground spaces to enhance the yield or hardiness of their crops. Similarly, their intricate understanding of astronomical cycles encoded into architecture went beyond marking ceremonies. By meticulously tracking the predictable patterns of stars and planets, they could develop long-term climate models, identifying cyclical patterns of drought or abundant rainfall. This astronomical meteorology would have been a critical tool for survival, allowing for strategic planning of water storage in their subterranean aquifers and the allocation of food resources, weaving together celestial observation, environmental science, and urban planning. The modern scientific method, for all its incredible power, often operates in silos, with rigid boundaries between departments and disciplines that can stifle the free flow of ideas. A geologist studying the volcanic rock of Derinkuyu may not regularly consult with an acoustician analyzing the resonant frequencies of the Hypogeum, yet both are studying different facets of the same ancient mind. The ancient approach challenges this fragmentation. It suggests that the next great breakthrough in sustainable architecture might not come from an engineering lab alone, but from a team that includes a materials scientist, a master musician understanding resonance, and a historian versed in ancient geothermal cooling techniques. The problems we face today, climate change, energy sustainability, urban density, are themselves highly complex and interdisciplinary. They cannot be solved by looking through a single keyhole. They require us to build a new kind of workshop, one that, like the ancient chambers themselves, brings all the different tools of human understanding together into a single collaborative space. By looking back at these ancient, integrated laboratories, we might just find the inspiration to break down our own walls and forge a new path of discovery, one that honors the intricate connections between all things. This dialogue with the past is actively reshaping the future of sustainable design. The passive climate control systems perfected in places like Derinkuyu and the Persian Qanats are no longer just historical curiosities. They are blueprints for a new era of green architecture. Modern engineers and architects grappling with the immense energy demands of heating and cooling are looking to these ancient models for inspiration. The principle of using the Earth's thermal mass as a natural regulator is being reimagined in contemporary geothermal heating and cooling systems. The clever convection-driven ventilation shafts of underground cities directly inform the design of modern passive ventilation in buildings, reducing reliance on energy-intensive air conditioning. This isn't about nostalgia. It's about recognizing that these time-tested solutions represent a profound form of sustainability, one that worked in harmony with natural forces rather than consuming vast resources to fight against them. By studying how ancient builders kept thousands of people comfortable deep underground without a single watt of electricity, we are rediscovering a lost art of environmental synergy that is more relevant today than ever before. The field of acoustics has been equally transformed by these subterranean discoveries. The resonant properties of chambers like the Oracle Room in Malta's Hypogeum have sparked a thriving area of research into the therapeutic and practical applications of sound. Modern acoustic engineers analyzing these spaces have gained new insights into how specific frequencies can be harnessed and controlled. This ancient knowledge is directly influencing the design of modern spaces where sound quality is paramount. Concert halls and recording studios now incorporate design principles gleaned from these ancient sites, using specific geometries and materials to create perfect reverberation and clarity. Even more fascinating is the emerging field of acoustic therapy, where researchers are exploring how the precise frequencies found in these chambers can be used to reduce stress, alleviate pain, and enhance meditation. The ancient practice of using sound for healing, once considered esoteric, is now being rigorously tested with modern scientific instruments, validating an intuition that these cultures carved into stone thousands of years ago. Perhaps one of the most profound impacts has been on archaeology itself, forcing a complete re-evaluation of historical timelines and technological capabilities. The precision of the Serapeum stone boxes or the astronomical alignments of Newgrange simply do not fit comfortably within the conventional narrative of human progress. These anomalies act as persistent puzzles, challenging archaeologists to ask harder questions and consider more sophisticated possibilities. The result has been a quiet revolution in the field, a move away from simplistic models of linear development toward a more complex understanding that acknowledges the possibility of peaks and valleys in technological achievement. Discoveries in these chambers have spurred the development of new, non-invasive technologies like ground-penetrating radar and 3D laser scanning, allowing us to peer into the Earth without disturbing these delicate time capsules. This marriage of cutting-edge technology with ancient mystery is pushing the boundaries of what we can know about the past, proving that the tools of the future are essential for unlocking the secrets of antiquity. This ongoing exploration serves as a powerful antidote to the hubris that often accompanies modern science. It is a humbling reminder that our current technological zenith is not necessarily the first, and that innovation can follow many different paths. The greatest lesson these underground laboratories teach us is that scientific progress is not a straight, inevitable line upward. It is more like a spiral where ideas can be lost, forgotten, and then rediscovered generations later in a new form. The ancient focus on sustainability, interdisciplinary thinking, and working with natural systems rather than against them feels strikingly contemporary. It suggests that some of the solutions to our most pressing modern challenges, from energy consumption to environmental management, might not be found in ever more complex technology, but in the rediscovery of simpler, more elegant principles that were understood long ago. These silent stone chambers ask us to look backward as we move forward, to look downward for inspiration that can lift us up, reminding us that the next great breakthrough might not be invented, but simply remembered. Yet the sheer perfection of these structures, from the impossible granite boxes of the Serapeum to the planet-wide pattern of astronomical subterranean observatories, presents us with a persistent and tantalizing mystery that conventional timelines struggle to contain. What if the explanation lies not in a gradual, linear progression of human skill, but in a far more dramatic and forgotten chapter of our history? This line of questioning leads us to one of the most controversial yet captivating ideas in alternative archaeology: the theory that these subterranean chambers are not the products of the cultures we credit them to, but are instead the legacy of a much older, far more advanced civilization, a precursor culture whose knowledge was so profound that its fragments, buried for safekeeping, astound us today. This is not a new notion. It echoes the ancient stories told by philosophers like Plato, who spoke of a magnificent island empire called Atlantis that sank beneath the waves in a single day and night of cataclysm. The theory proposes that before this great deluge or other global catastrophe, the enlightened inhabitants of this lost world, foreseeing their doom, undertook a monumental project to preserve the core of their scientific understanding. They encoded it not in fragile books or scrolls, but in the most durable medium they knew, stone. They built vast, hidden libraries deep within the earth, designing them to withstand millennia of upheaval, hoping that one day a future civilization would be advanced enough to rediscover them and understand their meaning. The evidence cited for this perspective often revolves around architectural and geological anomalies that defy simple explanation. Take, for instance, the site of Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey. This stunning complex of carved stone pillars arranged in circles is staggeringly ancient, dating back to around 9600 BCE. A time when conventional history tells us humans were simple hunter-gatherers incapable of such large-scale, coordinated construction. The sophistication of its carvings and the sheer size of the multi-ton stones would be impressive for any era, but for the pre-pottery Neolithic period, it is a complete historical outlier. Crucially, around 8000 BC, this entire site was not destroyed or abandoned in a way that would suggest invasion. It was deliberately and carefully buried under hundreds of tons of soil and rubble. Why would a culture invest such immense effort into building a monumental sacred site, only to spend further generations systematically burying it? One compelling interpretation is that they were not burying it to hide it from enemies, but to preserve it from an impending cataclysm, sealing their greatest work in a time capsule for the ages. This act of intentional interment mirrors the very purpose we are ascribing to subterranean chambers worldwide, suggesting a shared, ancient impulse to protect high knowledge from existential threats. This theory gains further traction when we look at the global distribution of these sophisticated underground sites. From the sunken ruins of Yonaguni off the coast of Japan to the mysterious underwater structures in the Gulf of Cambay, we find potential evidence of human activity at depths that were only submerged at the end of the last ice age, over 12,000 years ago. If these are indeed man-made, they point to human societies of immense antiquity, capable of complex construction during a period our history books largely label as primitive. The proponents of the lost civilization theory argue that a cataclysmic event, likely a rapid rise in sea levels, fragmented this advanced global culture. As their coastal cities were swallowed by the oceans, the survivors, carrying fragments of their former knowledge, scattered across the world. They would have integrated with less developed, emerging hunter-gatherer groups, becoming the mysterious sky gods or culture bringers that appear in the foundational myths of countless ancient cultures, from the Osiris of Egypt to the Viracocha of the Andes. These wise figures are consistently described as teaching agriculture, astronomy, masonry, and law, the very pillars of civilization. In this light, the subterranean chambers could be seen as the last surviving outposts of this mother culture, built as secure repositories of knowledge by these survivors in their new homes, who then inspired the later flowering of the ancient civilizations we know today. Of course, this perspective is met with intense skepticism from mainstream academia, and for good reason. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and much of the support for a lost global civilization remains circumstantial and interpretative. The danger of falling into romanticized pseudoscience is very real, and it is crucial to maintain a rigorous, evidence-based approach. However, the value of these theories does not necessarily lie in their ultimate veracity. Their true power is in their ability to challenge paradigms and force us to ask bigger, more daring questions. The standard model of human history is a neat, upward-sloping line from primitive to advanced. But what if the path of progress is not a line, but a cycle? What if human achievement has experienced great peaks and devastating valleys before? The concept of a lost golden age, followed by a dark age and a slow rediscovery of forgotten truths, is a recurring theme in human mythology for a reason. It encourages a necessary humility, reminding us that our current technological supremacy is not guaranteed, and that knowledge, no matter how advanced, is fragile. By seriously considering the possibility that the Göbekli Tepe burial or the Serapeum's precision are artifacts of a forgotten chapter, we are not abandoning science, we are expanding the scope of our curiosity. We are driven to look harder, dig deeper, and develop new technologies to investigate these anomalies without preconceived notions. This open-minded investigation, this relentless spirit of discovery, is the very heart of the scientific endeavor, ensuring that we never become so certain of our story that we stop looking for the clues that might rewrite it entirely. The thrill of discovery often comes with a heavy responsibility, and as our technology allows us to peer more deeply into these ancient underground spaces, we are forced to confront a series of profound ethical dilemmas. It's a delicate balancing act, a tightrope walk between the insatiable human drive for knowledge and the solemn duty to preserve these irreplaceable time capsules for the future. Every time we decide to excavate, to install lighting for tourists, or even to simply breathe our modern air into a sealed environment, we are making a choice that could irrevocably alter a site that has remained untouched for millennia. The very act of exploration contains the seed of destruction. The carbon dioxide from our breath can accelerate the decay of ancient paintings. The pressure from countless footsteps can subtly shift fragile stonework, and the humidity we bring in can create ideal conditions for destructive mold and bacteria to thrive. We must ask ourselves not only what we can learn from these chambers, but what we might unknowingly erase in the process of learning. This challenge is magnified exponentially by the surge in global tourism. Sites like Newgrange or the Hypogeum of Malta face immense pressure to accommodate visitors, whose fees fund essential conservation work, but whose presence inherently threatens the very structures they come to admire. Managing this requires incredibly nuanced solutions, strict limits on daily visitor numbers, the creation of meticulous microclimates within the chambers to counteract human impact, and the use of advanced replica chambers for the majority of the tourist experience are all critical steps. The goal must shift from maximizing access to maximizing preservation, even if that means the most sensitive sites remain largely off-limits, experienced through virtual reality or detailed documentaries instead of physical presence. It's about redefining what it means to see a historical wonder, prioritizing its long-term survival over the short-term gratification of every individual traveler. Beyond the physical preservation, there is the crucial matter of cultural and spiritual respect. For many indigenous and local communities around the world, these are not abandoned archaeological sites. They are living, sacred spaces, integral to their cultural identity and spiritual practices. The Western scientific approach, which often seeks to analyze, catalog, and display, can clash violently with these worldviews. A stone chamber might be a fascinating astronomical observatory to an archaeologist, but to a descendant of its builders, it is a temple, a place of communion with ancestors where the energy of the past is still palpably alive. Imposing an external interpretation or granting excavation permits without deep and meaningful consultation is a form of modern colonialism, a dismissal of living knowledge systems in favor of a single, empirical narrative. True ethical stewardship demands that we listen first. It requires forming genuine partnerships with these communities, recognizing them not as stakeholders, but as the primary guardians and interpreters of their own heritage. The tools we use to study these sites are also undergoing a revolutionary ethical shift. The days of the treasure-hunting excavator, digging recklessly for spectacular finds, are rightly over. The future lies in non-invasive and non-destructive technologies that allow us to see into the Earth without ever breaking ground. Ground-penetrating radar can map entire underground complexes from the surface, revealing the layout of tunnels and chambers hidden beneath our feet. LiDAR scanning, which uses lasers from aircraft, can strip away jungle canopy or layers of soil to expose vast archaeological landscapes. High-resolution 3D laser scanning can create perfect digital replicas of a chamber's interior, down to the millimeter, allowing researchers across the globe to study every detail without ever setting foot inside. These technologies represent a new golden age of discovery, one guided by the principle of minimal intervention. We can now satisfy our curiosity without wielding a shovel, preserving the sanctity and the mystery of the underground world for the day when even more advanced technologies might unlock their secrets without any touch at all. Ultimately, this journey into the past must be guided by a profound sense of humility. We must abandon the arrogant notion that our modern science is the first and only valid way of understanding the world. The precision of the ancients, their holistic integration of astronomy, acoustics, and spirituality, stands as a silent rebuke to our own often fragmented and specialized knowledge. Interpreting their work requires us to check our assumptions at the door and approach these spaces with open minds and respectful hearts. It means considering that a perfectly aligned shaft might be for spiritual illumination as well as astronomical observation, that a resonating chamber might be for healing as well as for ritual. By embracing multiple perspectives, scientific, indigenous, spiritual, and historical, we don't dilute the truth. We enrich it, building a fuller, more compassionate understanding of the incredible human achievement these chambers represent. Our mission is not to possess this knowledge, but to serve as its temporary custodians, ensuring that these silent stone libraries and the wisdom they hold remain intact and vibrant for the countless generations of curious minds yet to come. The future of uncovering these ancient secrets lies not in bigger shovels, but in smarter, more sensitive tools that allow us to see through stone and time without ever touching a surface. We are on the cusp of a revolution in archaeological discovery, driven by technologies that feel like they belong in science fiction. Imagine using ground-penetrating radar and LiDAR not just to map a known chamber, but to reveal an entire hidden city lying beneath the feet of a modern town, its streets and buildings rendered in perfect three-dimensional detail on a computer screen. This is the promise of non-invasive scanning. These tools send pulses of energy into the Earth, reading the subtle differences in density and composition that betray the presence of human-made voids, pathways, and structures invisible from the surface. For the first time, we can conduct a full archaeological survey of a site without breaking ground, preserving its sacred integrity while satisfying our boundless curiosity. The power of this data is magnified exponentially when placed in the hands of artificial intelligence, and our AI algorithm can be trained to analyze thousands of hours of acoustic data recorded in a place like the Hypogeum, identifying patterns and resonances that the human ear might completely miss. It could cross-reference the precise dimensions of 100 different subterranean chambers from across the globe, searching for common mathematical ratios or astronomical alignments that would take a team of researchers a lifetime to spot. This isn't about replacing human intuition. It's about augmenting it, giving us a digital assistant that can process immense datasets to highlight anomalies and connections we would otherwise overlook. An eye might one day decipher the purpose of a mysterious niche or tunnel by comparing it to every other known example in its database, suggesting a function that had never before been considered. Meanwhile, advances in material science are giving us the ability to ask more precise questions of the artifacts we do find. Isotopic dating techniques are becoming so refined that we can now determine not just the century a stone was carved, but in some cases, the specific season. By analyzing the minute traces of organic material trapped in the mortar or tool marks, we can build an incredibly detailed timeline of construction. Even the very air trapped inside a sealed chamber for millennia can be sampled and analyzed, telling us about the climate conditions at the time it was closed and what materials, oils, plants, or incense might have been burning inside. This turns each sealed room into a pristine time capsule, a snapshot of a single moment in ancient history, waiting for us to develop the delicate tools to read its contents without contamination. The most exciting breakthroughs will undoubtedly come from the collision of these different fields, fostered by unprecedented interdisciplinary collaborations. The mystery of the Serapeum's granite boxes won't be solved by an archaeologist alone. It will require a geologist to analyze the crystal structure of the stone for evidence of advanced tooling, a physicist to model potential sonic or vibrational cutting methods, and a materials engineer to test these theories with authentic tools and techniques. Unraveling the acoustic properties of global sites demands a team that includes not only archaeologists, but also concert hall designers and neuroscientists, each bringing their unique perspective to the question of how and why sound was engineered. This model of teamwork breaks down the traditional silos of academia, creating a holistic approach to problem solving that finally matches the integrated worldview of the ancient builders themselves. This global effort is also rightly shifting to include the voices that have been historically excluded, those of local and indigenous communities. The descendants of the people who built these chambers often carry oral histories and traditional knowledge that offer invaluable context, turning a cold archaeological puzzle into a living cultural narrative. A Western scientist might see a narrow shaft as a ventilation system, but a local elder might know it as the path of the ancestors' breath, a detail that transforms an engineering feature into a spiritual one. Future research will be most ethical and most effective when it is co-created, blending cutting-edge technology with ancient, sustained wisdom to form a complete picture. And what might this collaborative, technologically supercharged exploration find? The potential is staggering. We may discover that sites like the Giza Plateau are underlain by a vast, uncharted network of tunnels and chambers mentioned in ancient texts but never found. A new scan could reveal the true extent of a complex like Derinkuyu, showing it connects to other underground cities across hundreds of miles. Each discovery has the power to radically alter our understanding of human history, pushing back the dates of technological achievement and revealing a past that was far more interconnected and sophisticated than we ever imagined. The next decade promises to be the most thrilling period of discovery we have ever known, a time when the silent, dark world beneath our feet finally begins to share its deepest secrets with the light of our modern inquiry. Yet for all the genuine wonder these ancient sites inspire, they also act as magnets for some of the most outlandish and persistent myths in popular culture. It's a fascinating phenomenon. The same awe that draws us to these incredible achievements can sometimes short-circuit our critical thinking, leading us to reach for explanations that feel exciting but ultimately diminish the very people we're trying to understand. The most common of these is the idea of extraterrestrial intervention, the notion that ancient humans simply weren't capable of such work and must have had help from advanced beings from beyond our world. This idea might seem harmless on the surface, a bit of fun speculation, but it carries a deeply insidious implication. It strips our ancestors of their ingenuity, their patience, and their brilliance, reducing them to passive recipients of technology they couldn't comprehend. This isn't just bad history, it's a profound disrespect to the countless generations of skilled artisans, engineers, and astronomers whose cumulative knowledge made these wonders possible. The allure of these myths is understandable. Faced with the seamless perfection of a 70-ton granite box in the Serapeum, the human mind seeks an immediate, satisfying answer. The idea of aliens with laser tools provides a simple, science fiction solution that feels more comfortable than the complex, messy reality of human endeavor. The truth is often less dramatic but far more impressive. We have overwhelming archaeological evidence for the techniques they used. In the Egyptian quarries at Aswan, we can see the unmistakable evidence of their methods. There's an unfinished obelisk still lying in the bedrock, and surrounding it are channels carved by teams of workers who would have hammered away with simple dolerite balls, a stone harder than granite, using water and abrasive quartz sand to slowly, patiently grind through the rock. This was a process of immense labor and time, not magic. It was a triumph of organized effort and perseverance, a testament to what human beings can achieve when they dedicate themselves to a goal across generations. The same goes for moving these colossal stones. The idea that they were levitated with sonic harmonics or anti-gravity devices makes for a great movie scene, but the reality is both simpler and, in its own way, more brilliant. We have ancient illustrations and archaeological remains that show us how it was done. They used massive sledges lubricated with water or clay to reduce friction. They built enormous ramps out of mud brick and rubble, which were later dismantled, leaving little trace. They employed levers, rollers, and the coordinated power of hundreds of workers pulling on ropes. This was an application of basic physics on a grand scale, a breathtaking feat of logistics and manpower that speaks to a highly organized society with master engineers who understood mechanics intuitively. To attribute this to aliens is to ignore the incredible power of human cooperation and intelligence. Another popular myth revolves around lost, super-advanced technologies like crystal power or free energy devices hidden within these chambers. While it's true that we may not fully understand every ritualistic or practical purpose of these spaces, invoking unknown physics is unnecessary. The real energy systems they mastered were far more elegant and sustainable. Their understanding of passive geothermal cooling, hydraulic engineering in the Granite systems, and acoustic resonance for communication and ceremony represents a form of technology perfectly adapted to its environment and available materials. It was a science of working with nature, not dominating it. The real mystery isn't about finding a forgotten power source. It's about understanding the sophisticated, holistic worldview that allowed them to achieve such harmony with their environment, a lesson we are desperately trying to relearn today. So why does the mythical explanation hold such power over us? Psychologically, it might be easier to believe in a single, cataclysmic event or an outside savior than to accept the slow, gradual, and often fragile nature of human progress. It simplifies the narrative. Furthermore, these myths can be commercially lucrative, fueling television shows and books that prioritize sensationalism over substance. But embracing an evidence-based approach doesn't make the story any less amazing. In fact, it makes it more so. The real story is not about space travelers, it's about us. It's about the undeniable potential of the human spirit, our capacity for observation, innovation, and collaboration across centuries. When we look at the Great Pyramid or the Hypogeum, we are not looking at proof of aliens. We are looking into a mirror reflecting the staggering capabilities we have always possessed. Choosing facts over fantasy isn't a rejection of wonder. It's the only way to truly honor the genius of our ancestors and appreciate the real human marvel that stands before us. Perhaps the most profound application of this ancient wisdom lies in our approach to sustainability. We live in an era defined by a climate crisis, desperately seeking solutions to cool our overheating cities and manage our precious water resources. For decades, our answer has been to throw energy at the problem, massive air conditioning systems that guzzle electricity and exacerbate the very issue they're trying to solve. But the ancient builders of Derinkuyu and the Persian Qanats offer a radically different, more elegant model. They didn't fight their environment, they collaborated with it. By harnessing the Earth's constant subterranean temperature for passive cooling and using the simple physics of convection for ventilation, they created comfortable living spaces for thousands without consuming a single watt of power. This isn't primitive technology, it's genius-level design that modern architects are now urgently looking to emulate. The principles behind these ancient systems are directly inspiring a new wave of green architecture, from buildings that use geothermal heat pumps to regulate temperature to urban designs that incorporate passive ventilation shafts, proving that some of the most forward-thinking solutions for our future are actually waiting for us in the past. This shift in perspective extends far beyond just architecture. It challenges the very way we think about innovation itself. Our modern world often celebrates the lone genius and the disruptive, brand new invention. We tend to view progress as a linear path, always moving forward and discarding what came before. The ancient approach revealed in these chambers presents a more cyclical and cumulative view of progress. Their advancements were not the product of isolated eureka moments, but of generations of patient observation, meticulous experimentation, and the careful passing down of knowledge. They understood that true innovation often means looking deeper into the principles of the natural world, not just building more complex technology on top of a flawed foundation. In our rush to innovate, we might be overlooking simpler, more elegant solutions that are already present in the world around us. The lesson here is one of humility and observation, to sometimes stop adding and start listening, to learn from the patterns that have been tested by time itself. On a deeply personal level, these silent stone chambers speak to values that feel more relevant than ever in our fast-paced digital age. They are monumental testaments to the power of perseverance. The Hypogeum in Malta wasn't built in a year, it was refined over 1,000. The Serapeum's boxes represent an almost unimaginable dedication to a single, precise task. In a culture that often prioritizes speed and immediate results, these ancient projects remind us that some of the most meaningful and enduring achievements require a long-term vision that stretches beyond a single lifetime. They call us to nurture our own curiosity, to ask big questions and pursue them with patience, even if we may not see the final answers ourselves. They remind us that we are all temporary custodians of a vast inheritance of knowledge, with a responsibility not only to understand it but to protect it and add to it for those who will come after us. So how do we, as individuals, become part of this continuous story? It doesn't require carving an underground city. It can start with cultivating an interdisciplinary mindset in our own lives and work. We can consciously seek out connections between seemingly separate fields, just as the ancient builders fused astronomy with acoustics and engineering with spirituality. We can choose to support the meticulous, often unglamorous work of archaeological preservation and research, recognizing that each new discovery in a subterranean chamber can offer a vital clue for navigating our own future. And perhaps most importantly, we can apply the ancient principle of working with nature, not against it, in our daily choices, whether it's in how we design our homes, manage our resources, or simply spend more time observing the natural world for the elegant solutions it already holds. By doing so, we stop being passive observers of history and become active participants in a timeless human journey, one that connects the hand that carved a resonant chamber 5,000 years ago to the mind that seeks to understand it today. As we stand at the precipice of this journey, looking back into the depths we've explored together, it's worth pausing to let the full weight of these discoveries settle in your mind. We've walked through resonating chambers tuned like instruments, marveled at stone boxes cut with impossible precision, and traced shafts of sunlight that have not missed their celestial appointment for 5,000 years. But the most thrilling thought of all might be this: what we've uncovered is likely only the faintest whisper of what still lies hidden, waiting in the darkness for its moment to return to the light. The Earth is a vast keeper of secrets, and every new technology we develop, from ground-penetrating radar to artificial intelligence, offers another key to a lock we didn't even know existed. The next great discovery might be buried beneath the sands of Egypt, hidden under the jungles of Central America, or even waiting below the streets of a modern city, a silent testament to a past we are only beginning to comprehend. Consider for a moment how the rediscovery of this ancient acoustic science could ripple through our modern world. We are only just beginning to explore the therapeutic potential of sound in medicine, using specific frequencies to alleviate pain, reduce anxiety, and even promote healing. Yet the evidence suggests that ancient cultures had already mapped the neurological and physiological effects of resonance with a precision we are still struggling to match. What if the resonant frequencies built into the oracle room of the Hypogeum hold the key to non-invasive treatments for neurological conditions? Could the principles of sound amplification and guidance, so masterfully employed in subterranean temples, revolutionize how we design spaces for communication, from concert halls to virtual meeting rooms? The potential applications stretch far beyond history, offering tangible gifts to our future. This entire exploration serves as a powerful, humbling counter-narrative to the story we often tell ourselves about human progress, a simple, straight line from primitive past to advanced present. These chambers stand as monumental proof that the path of knowledge is not linear, but more like a spiral where profound insights can be achieved, lost to time, and then rediscovered generations later. They challenge our inherent bias that newer automatically means better, forcing us to confront the possibility that some forms of sophistication are not about complexity, but about harmony. The ancient mastery of passive climate control, sustainable water management, and holistic design represents a pinnacle of working with natural forces, a lesson in elegance and efficiency that our energy-intensive modern world desperately needs to relearn. True advancement, it seems, might not always be about inventing something new, but about remembering something old and understanding it in a new light. This is where your perspective becomes a vital part of the story. The conversation about our past shouldn't happen only in academic journals or behind museum doors. It belongs to all of us. Every single viewer brings a unique set of experiences and insights to this mystery. Perhaps you're an engineer who looks at the ventilation shafts of Derinkuyu and sees a brilliant solution to a modern problem. Maybe you're a musician who hears the resonant frequencies of the Hypogeum and imagines new forms of composition. Or you might simply be someone filled with a sense of wonder, drawn to the quiet majesty of these underground worlds. I am genuinely curious to know which of these chambers captured your imagination most powerfully. Was it the mathematical perfection of the Serapeum's boxes, the communal ingenuity of Derinkuyu, or the celestial drama of Newgrange? Share your thoughts in the comments below and tell me why that particular site speaks to you. Your voice adds another layer to this ongoing exploration, connecting us all in a shared, timeless quest to understand the incredible depth of human ingenuity. Our journey beyond the walls has revealed that these subterranean chambers are far more than ancient relics or forgotten tombs. They stand as a powerful testament to a sophisticated and deeply integrated scientific tradition, one that wove together acoustics, astronomy, engineering, and spirituality into a single, holistic understanding of the universe. From the resonant halls of Malta that could alter human consciousness to the perfectly aligned passages in Ireland that captured the solstice sun, these spaces force us to completely rethink our historical timeline and develop a profound appreciation for the ingenuity of our ancestors. They achieved this not with complex machinery, but with patient observation, meticulous experimentation, and a relentless curiosity about the world around them. This exploration reminds us that the drive for scientific discovery is a universal human endeavor, a timeless flame that has burned brightly across cultures and millennia. It is not the sole property of our modern age with its labs and computers. The same desire to understand the movement of stars, the properties of sound, and the strength of materials motivated these ancient builders, and their legacy is carved in stone for us to find. Their work challenges the very notion of linear progress, showing us that innovation can be lost, forgotten, and then rediscovered, urging a necessary humility in our own technological confidence. As we continue to develop new tools to uncover their remaining secrets, let's also carry forward the crucial lessons they offer. Their spirit of innovation was rooted in sustainability, working in harmony with natural forces rather than overwhelming them. Their approach was fundamentally interdisciplinary, recognizing that the deepest truths are often found at the intersections of different fields of knowledge. And their commitment to preservation, safeguarding their most valuable knowledge deep within the earth, speaks to a profound sense of responsibility to future generations. Thank you for joining me on this incredible exploration into the depths of human history. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please subscribe for more journeys into the world's greatest historical mysteries. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Which of these subterranean chambers fascinates you the most? Together, we keep the timeless flame of discovery burning.